Welcome and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the talk think tank that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find his way to America locked in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the indigenous one. And today we're going to pick up from what we did last week on talking about your relatives in the Pacific. We were talking to the brother Al White last week about the people in the Pacific and came up with some pretty interesting tidbits that a lot of us, or I'm not going to say a lot of us, I'm going to say I didn't know about. But other questions have persisted since then. And we have some more, he has some more information he wants to bring up that I think is very important, especially to the indigenous people of America, because of the way we look at things. We normally look at things through the eyesights of other people. Almost never we look at things from our point of view. And we want to give our listeners and people the chance to do that. What do you say about what's going on instead of having it dictated to you? Before we get into Al, though, I want to share something that was shared with me today. I just want to share a story with you that I'm sure is going viral now. And this story comes from New York, and you can find it. And it says a nurse says New York City hospitals are murdering black COVID-19 victims, compares it to Nazi Germany. Now, why this story is important, and when you read the comments, especially what our people say, we're always these devils. We always saying stuff that really doesn't make an impact or do anything because the words and the things we think we know aren't really what it is. And so that's how we're able to be picked off so easily. We, as a group of people, we find it hard to pick up information. We don't want to know anything. And these things are happening to us. So that's the reason, number one, for this channel. They the motto is each one teach one. But we're finding out that we're in a position where each one has to teach at least 100,000 because there's something about the information we're not picking up, and you're seeing us drop like flies. So I don't know if this is the way we want it because our behavior in all of this hasn't changed one iota. And this is a point where everybody is saying this event that's going now is something that's going on now. It should be a warning to all of us. Being in the house, locked in the house, should give you some time to think about what's going on. And I'm sure there's millions of people who are sitting contemplating and pondering what their next move is or what the moves of their family are. But it seems a lot of us, we're just content on being told what to do. Remember, that's a vital part of the African American's character is being told what to do, sitting down, thinking, coming up with to solve problems for themselves. They're waiting for somebody else to come do that. And so you're going to start seeing more. And these stories have been going on since this COVID-19 stuff has been going on, ever since we've been the spotlight of it. So pay attention to your loved ones. Pay attention to the people in the community who really, when it comes to knowing things we really don't know, and try to put across to them what's going on. The Georgia Guidestones tell you that they have to reduce the population by 90%. Who do you think is going to start off that number of 90%? So we got to start, being real. I know we used to being fake and being lied to and being bullshitted all the time. Now it's not the time. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today to pick up this information from Al. And Al, how you doing, brother?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, brother. Last week we was talking about the the people in the Pacific,
Mhm.
and and the group African Americans Ain't Africans, we get a lot of posts and a lot of information from the Pacific from people just finding stuff out. But you were going in detail. And I just want to start off, and this is something I want to know, and it's something I want to share with the group, because I think it's something we really have to look at. I think we were talking yesterday, and you were saying that aside from the major 8 islands in Hawaii, Hawaii has more islands than we know. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure, absolutely. Um, there are, from what I've found out, is this: there are 8 major islands, okay, and 124 minor islands that complete the Hawaiian Islands, and we're talking about over 6,425 square miles. And the major islands we know, like where Honolulu is located, like Oahu, um, Maui, what they call the Big Island, um, uh, Kaua, Nahua, Laha'i. Those islands. those are the popular 8 islands. But there's 124 of them total. So when we add the 8 to that 124, what do we get? We get over 130 plus islands. And from again, like what I just want to kind of segue on what you were talking about. We just listen to stuff that people tell us instead of finding out things for ourselves and understanding things that we need to know for ourselves. And we don't do that. But I do a lot of research. I ask a lot of questions. I try to find out things about certain things for myself. Even with the health disparities in the Pacific Islands. I look at the same type of health disparities that we suffer here. For example, the obesity, the high blood pressure, the hypertension, the diabetes, those type of things, and it's prevalent in our amongst us here in the Americas. And why is that? Because one of the things I come to find out, exporting obesity, the United States corporation does that. And when you take control of lands and control of the people, this is what happens. The diets change. The people that may have done agriculture or fishing or hunting no longer do that. It's urbanization has come in, and one thing about urbanization, it it destroys it destroys lives and livelihoods and the land mass itself. I mean, Hawaii could be a very, very, or more beautiful than what it is, but because of the urbanization of these islands, it makes it look ugly.
The reason I brought up, the reason I started
Hmm.
with the question about the other 126 islands is because you said something that those chunk of islands have to mean something. Could you share what that is?
They have to mean something. It have to have been a landmass, a solid landmass before it became islands, because that is too many islands. I mean, close together. We talking about also volcanic islands too, as well. There's just too many of them, and to be in that such close proximity of one another, not to have been at one time a solid landmass.
So what does that mean for we always talk about, on this earth, there has been many changes. And like we talked about last week, if you go down to the Caribbean and you see those string of islands that lead down to South America,
Hmm.
if if the if they were raised 100 feet, that would be a landmass. So in that in the Pacific, that that area in the Pacific, is it possible that they could be other land masses that connect here to America, connected to them?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I like to use what they call Haiti or Haiti, for example, and then you got the Dominican Republic, so called. The funny part of it is this: it's one landmass but two separate so-called countries, and that's done by the colonizers. But looking at that from that example, and then looking at all these other islands, they had to have some kind of connection, not only just connection in terms of trade, commerce, language, culture, but they also had to have some type of connection in terms of physical environment because they're all similar.
Say that again because they're all what?
They're all similar.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to different islands in the Pacific, they're all similar. They have the same, the same vegetation, the same animals, mammals, birds, yeah, trees, all of that, volcanoes, and it's like, wait a minute. If we got these many islands this close together, somehow they must have been a solid landmass at one point.
And what about the other islands that's east of Hawaii? I think they're Micronesian or Macronesian islands.
Yeah,
You were telling me about Australia. What about those?
they call that Micronesia, and what's funny about that is that New Zealand is connected to that. And when you do the research and you talk to the people, you find that they have the same phenotypes. In other words, they look the same. Culture is close. The language is easy to understand each other, and it's like, wow. You look at those islands. Why they call them Micronesia? As a micronism. See, this is the things that they don't talk about. They use these words and these terms, and you make you wonder what the islands are smaller or something. What's going on here? It's just like the word minority. Minority actually means that not only are you supposed to be the lesser, but childlike. In other words, you're unable to govern yourself. And so we have to look at these terms that they use and really delve into what's really going on with a lot of this stuff here. And looking at the Micronesia, the obesity, it has the highest obesity rate in the world. And why is that? For example, these processed junk foods, frozen turkey tails, which are deemed inedible here in the mainland United States because they're high fat percentage, they slipped into the Micronesian markets where they are sold for under $1 a pound. So you look at stuff like that and say, how did that happen? How did they be able to take over their agriculture and everything and eating their what they call their native foods? How did they stop doing that? How did they end up depending on the United States and other foreign entities to supply them with imported foods that are no good for their bodies? It's not nutritious. It's a detriment.
Well, how did that happen?
Well, one of the biggest things was that, and when that Captain Cook went over to the Pacific Islands, that started it all. But then once you get into the 1800s, the 1820s, 30s, this is when the foreigners, the Europeans came, start having plantations, like pineapples and different other things like sugarcane and stuff like that, and then hiring the indigenous people to do the farm work. So now you're taking over the commerce. Some of the goods they may have traded on their own. Now you're bringing in other people to take over the fishing ports, things like that. And by the time we hit the 1890s, then we talk about annexation and acquiring these other islands and calling them United States territories. It's like, wow. And so the politics, everything is all changed. And you get this hybridization of people, and you're wondering where the original people went. I was reading where influenza, cholera, smallpox, measles, all that, syphilis, mumps, all that was brought to these places, including there's another disease that's very debilitating, and it tears up your limbs and everything, is leprosy. As I read where one was purposely given leprosy because of some alleged crime that he's supposed to have committed. This was an indigenous person.
Well, see what you're talking about. I'm getting some feedback.
Okay.
So what's going on viral now in America with this COVID-19, and you're seeing more nurses starting to come forth and saying they're just slaughtering the so-called Black folks. This is happening in hospitals, and there's not an uproar first from Black folks. Black folks don't make an uproar. So they're being murdered, their parents are being taken. Is this the same kind of thing that's going on in those islands over there too, where these people are just being erased?
Yes, and what was really, really the biggest impact was when they started using the nuclear. Besides the biological warfare, they started using the nuclear warfare and doing their testing right after World War II. Many of the islands, especially between 1948 and 1954, were impacted by these tests. So you have to ask yourself a question. Why would these people test this thing, this energy that is so dangerous, so detrimental to biological life? Why would you test it there? This is your weapon. So you're going to take it over to where people don't have anything to do with this weapon, and you're going to go and detonate this weapon to see what it does. And what it does, we're talking about cancer. We're talking about miscarriages. We're talking about tumors. We're talking about developmental disabilities. Why would you do that?
So let me ask you a question, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm with Neely Fuller on this one. We in jail, period. And we've been needing a jailbreak for a long ass time. How is it? Is what you're saying that's going on? Because it not only is it going on there, it's going on here in America, it's going on around the world. Do you think the people's non-interest in it, how much is that due to fear? Not only here, but there. What's the whole thing? Does that nuclear, does that push that fear button where if they try to do something, this could happen? How much does fear play into the people saying enough is enough?
Mm-hmm. It comes down to not only fear, but you have to look at the hybridization of the people that they now call the Pacific Islanders. You look at them, it's like, wait a minute, that's not the same people that was there in, say, for example, 1890. 1940.
Damn.
You know, the politics, everything. And not only that, now you got a group of people that have weapons, not only of mass destruction, but mass destruction to the nth power, you know? And you're like, wow. Now they build up all these armies, navies, air forces. And not only that, they have other people who are their workers are in cahoots with them. And so now you're like, wow, if we would have an indigenous uprising, what would happen? Because now these people have all these weapons that can destroy us instantly. A bomb, you know, a bullet, you know, biological weapons. You're seeing that. And they've been doing that for centuries. But nobody says nothing. Nobody calls them out on that. Nobody, you know, make it known that, hey, this is what you guys been doing since you've been here.
But is that nuclear, okay, using that nuclear threat, that keeps the native in check?
Yeah.
Is there a point, and the reason I bring this up, because rehashing the same old bullshit gets boring. Those islands are these parts of the world that are underwater, because that's what those islands represent to me. It represents a part of the world that was above the water, but now was below. And something happened, and maybe it was probably worse than them nuclear bombs dropped. I don't know. Same thing over here in the Caribbean. That this land can change, but we have a connection to that land. What do the people over there say happened? Why these islands? Do they have stories or allegories to say what happened to the lands?
I'll be honest with you. The only allegories I've heard is they used to talk about the night marchers. These warriors, they were like giants. And they actually praying for the night marchers to come back so they can have their lands back. But other than that, you know the story, freedom of religion, but the indigenous people's religion is superstition. And then in terms of the lands itself, I can't really speak on that. I wish I could in terms of allegories or stories of what, you know, what could have happened to their lands. But these people are still connected. You know, you talk to them, the actual people are connected like brothers and sisters. They use the term Uso, meaning brothers. And if you're talking to a female is talking to other females, use the term Uso, that means they're sisters. And I'm just, you know, looking at that from that perspective, when I break stuff down and look at what happened with the European connection, it's like, wow. You know, as soon as they get certain chiefdoms to embrace certain things, the next thing you know, it's all over with. It's all over with.
So they just come over and buy the chiefs. So the chiefs there are the politicians here.
Right. The King Kamehameha made the biggest mistake. In order to bring those 8 islands together in terms of unity, he used weapons that was given to him from the United States. And you know that was done here also. The indigenous people started using Buffalo Soldiers, and prior to the Buffalo Soldiers, they were getting rifles and stuff like that, and alcohol.
Right.
You know, whatever little trinket they can give them, they embrace it. Next thing you know, the whole kingdom or the whole chiefdom falls in the hands of you know who. And everything changes. Then they bring in all these other folks, their workers and whatever else, and now you have this hybridization, and it's the craziest thing.
Right. Yeah, man. It's. I'm starting to see now. And I don't know if it's this coronavirus pandemic just brings up the thought, but it's
Mhm.
like people can control the word by control the world through simple words.
Yeah. Yep.
Get the people to believe it, no matter how dumb it sounds. The people go for it. Just like with this coronavirus thing, and lately, how doctors and nurses, and really what's really happening, because people are locked in the house. All the information you're getting, somebody else is giving it to you. You're not going out investigating anything. You're being MK Ultra.
Yep.
The average person, come on. You don't get no you don't think, and that's something definitely the African Americans don't do, is
Mhm.
think. And all this stuff is, and now we're being fed to how to live our lives.
Mhm. Yep.
This is my question to you. Disconnecting the people from the land to that extent, because I know there's a symbiotic relationship between the people and the land, like you just explained.
Mhm.
Does the land change when the people are off of it to a certain extent? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. It does. The weather changes. Now, if you notice, we got a lot of fake weather. I mean, I'm in the Cleveland area, and I notice weather that I've never seen when I was a child. These winds and stuff, it might as well be like almost a miniature tornado. But to segue about what you were talking about in terms of the so-called African American don't do nothing, and Pacific Islanders. This is what happens. These missionaries have come in, and the belief systems and everything that the people had now is changed. And I've seen people post on Facebook, and people that I know and highly respect asking, why is God letting this coronavirus happen? And it's like, and then the answers you get is like this. And you talk to people that say, well, God allows things to happen so we'll trust him. It's like, no. Who brought you that term? Who brought you that book? It's the same people that's causing these, what they call prophecies and stuff. They're causing these things to happen so you believe and trust them to get you out of it. Or you're going to pray. And I'm not trying to be talk about people and their religious beliefs or anything like that. That's personal. But think about it. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. You gonna tell me God is gonna allow things to happen so I trust him? Who's doing this stuff? Who's actually doing this? We don't ask those kind of questions. We don't know. We don't ask these kind of questions like who's bringing these diseases? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? It's just you gotta be just dumb and want to be dumb.
Okay, now when you say dumb,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people get offended by that term, that dumb. And I mean, we have to be factual on some things, because I think that's the only way to change it. I mean, you can't have a guy who's beating up his wife. You can't tell him that he's not beating up his wife, because he'll continue to do it. Or you don't say nothing and he'll continue to do it. And that seems like the way we're programmed. If we don't say nothing, it'll just magically go away.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go back to something. So I want to ask you this question about the people being connected to the land.
Mm-hmm.
Or if this is a place where the souls here in America is called the soul people, or in this area.
Mm-hmm.
I know over in the islands, they're looked at as another people. They have, like we said, their own legends and allegories. And you were talking about the night marchers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find any similarities in the stories in the Pacific to the ones over here? I'm talking about the indigenous stories. I'm not talking about Yakub and all that stuff that was bought by other people.
Mhm.
The stories that are there about the land and the people compared to the stories here about the land and the people.
Mhm. Well, when I look at the comparison, I think about things like Black Panther. Now, if anybody don't know, you need to understand this. There is no such thing as a Black Panther. It's called Panthera onca, meaning that a big cat that can kill with one blow. And we're talking about the jaguar. And the jaguar is indigenous to the Americas. And when you get a black jaguar, okay, then they want to call it a Black Panther. But when that animal's in the sunlight, you can still see the spots. Then they talk about this Wakanda. But what about Wakanda, Kansas? Wakanda, Arkansas? Wakanda, Illinois? It's here in the Americas. And this is what people don't seem to get. They watch that movie. Our folks, what the biggest box office, $1 billion? And because we just, look, you know what? I don't care if they get offended or not. You're just dumb. I had a conversation with someone today, and they was talking about, African Americans. Say, look, that's a misnomer. I had to do it. It was a teaching moment. I said, there's no records to show that any of my people come from that place.
Man, about with that movie, because I'm not really into that movies and the TV and stuff, and because I didn't see that, but everything you said, I had knew that. But I was talking to this one cat. He is a brother, because I look at brothers like you, all the brothers, like you could be my older brother, or you could be my cousin, or you could be, I look at you I look at you like that because I speak to you more than I speak to all those people. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
My family, we don't have these type of conversations. It's always wars, man. I went to the club, man. I got drunk. I was arrested. That's the normal high five, get slapped on the back type shit that my family talks about. And the stuff they do, I mean, it's some Amos and Andy shit, big time. Do you think the time, are we caught in some kind of time loop? Because it seems that we just keep repeating everything over and over. It seems like it's like 100-year cycle, and we just repeat the same thing because we have no connection to the land or the history.
Yeah. To segue into that is like this. We are traumatized people. Okay, we've experienced trauma for centuries, from the first contact of the people from the East, what I call the Eastern Hemisphere. And then as we progress on into this traumatic experience, then we become so traumatized, we fall into a menticide situation where now a traumatic mind wants to be entertained. A traumatic mind don't want to think about the truth of what's really going on or what happened and how to resolve the issue. All they want to do is, I want to feel good. I want something to make me feel good. I want to be entertained, blah, blah, blah. This is why, and I don't want to think about it. You see, we start now we get into this mental state where we don't want to think about nothing. We don't want to feel nothing. We don't want to understand nothing. And then we're in this mess and we're constantly in it. And it's only a few people like ourselves is like, wait a minute, enough is enough. I'm not going to accept what you're telling me. I'm not going to believe in this nonsense that you keep pushing, and when you got people like me and you, we're a threat. We show up, our presence is like, oh, wait a minute, we can't run this game on these guys. Then they get scared. And then they're like, oh, then they want to, then when you do break out the truth to certain people, then they want to get mad, they want to cuss you out, they want to fight, all kind of nonsense like that. And it's like, look, you haven't seen this happening to you. You know, we don't pay attention to things. Like when I was talking about that fake weather. There's a quote, everybody, you know, our people love John F. Kennedy. Even when he was assassinated, my mother went to go get my brother from elementary school, and he told me, said, Mom came in, she was crying, said they killed the president. And I was an arm baby. I was just born, really. And, you know, you look into some of the things that he said, and I quote, he says, we need to partner with other countries to predict the weather and control it. And someone mentioned in the chat the HARP program. So now we got, you know, you remember the snow that we used to see? I don't know if you had snow in your area, but when I remember the snow that I used to see in the pretty shapes and different type of forms that it had, like a snowflake. You know, talking about the snowflakes. Yeah. But now this snow that I see now, it's like it just clumped. It has no form. It has no distinction to it. You know, and these different winds and stuff in this area, it's like it's unprecedented. It's like as a child growing up, I'm like, we didn't have this kind of weather. What is this? And then now we in May, and they talking about frost and snow still. I'm like, really? So what's this coming? You start trying to still weaken our immune system so you can still push this virus? What's going on?
Yeah, cause
you know, I'm still running the furnace in my house. That's how cold it's been. And we're supposed to be in springtime. Trees on the leaves growing slow and everything. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's what I mean, man. That to me, that weather change shit, the season, because I mean, and I know, and I see it happening now. You seeing people, they're still trying to burn the snow, and the snow just melts like plastic.
That's what it looks like.
But people are now catching up and starting to see. But it's only a few. It's only a few people, and with all this information, I mean, there is a wash in information, and seeing what's happening to us as a group of people. The information that's at our disposal, is at our disposal. And how I'm talking about as a body of people. I'm not just talking about 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people, because we've seen that we can be led places that we don't want to go. I'm saying where each individual can make his decision, and the decisions that we make all link up, because it's what we're all experiencing. Not because I wear blue shoes or red shoes, or I got a blonde weave or red, none of that shit. As people of the planet, you know, because I think the planet creates people like they do all the other creatures on the planet. It creates giraffes, lions, squirrels, beaver, fish.
Yeah.
So those are all life forms, and I think we're just a life form. But as a life form, we have an intelligence that sometimes, because I'm starting to really think that human beings, we're fucking stupid. And there's no, dude, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah, you can't, there's no clean way you can put it. You just, straight with no chaser. Because the thing of it is that when I've been in Hawaii and I started seeing all these different animals and stuff, and I started doing research, like what animals are actually indigenous to this land? I see all these different birds and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, why pigeons are here? Pigeons is nothing but an urbanized creature that came from Europe. Why they got all these pigeons here? You know, and different. So I kind of find out it's over 35 different bird species that are not indigenous to Hawaii. They have all these chickens running around wild, black chickens, copper colored chickens, white chickens. I mean, you name it. running around wild, all over the place, in the neighborhoods, everywhere, out in the countryside. I mean, it's like, and it's illegal to even like, yeah, look, I'll catch one of them chickens, I'm gonna cook it, and I'm like, why is that? And then I kind of find out it's a fowl that came from Europe. And I'm like, well, what were their birds? I kind of find out they got a certain type of duck, a certain type of goose, a certain type of falcon, their bats. But these other 35 different type of birds and other animals were brought there. They had they had the what is that different type of lizards and stuff like that. And I think about, they talk about the pig, they eat a lot of pork there. And it's like, wait a minute, you're acting like this pig was naturally or indigenous to this land. No, just like in the Americas. And one of the things I want to emphasize about this pork stuff, this pig, indigenous people use the whole animal. And I get tired of that narrative about, well, Massa gave us, the gut, the chitlins, and that, he gave us the worst part of the animal. No, we use all, any animal that we kill, we use it all. I remember my brother killed a squirrel and my mother cooked it. And I'm living in housing projects. This is in the 1960s. Skinned that squirrel, like a pro. And butchered it, fried that squirrel up, tasted better than chicken. And I'm like, wow.
See, that's what I'm saying.
And my mother's from rural Georgia, and I'm like, man, but again, they bring these animals over here, and as people, we embrace this stuff, but we still did the same things that we did prior to contact with these folks. We'd use the whole animal.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, how we disconnected ourselves from the land. Because where we used to eat squirrel, deer, and a whole lot of the other little creatures around, now we eat pig, we eat chicken. And let me tell you something.
Cow.
This shit is weird. Man, ever since this coronavirus thing has been going down, man, all that's been selling is chicken.
And a lot of that chicken is processed over in China and then brought back and sold here.
See, that's common knowledge.
Yeah. And it's like, what? Then coronavirus supposed to have started there. I'm like, what? Really? But see, like I said, our people are like this. Once they became indoctrinated and embraced the stuff, that's just it. You got to think about how crafty it was, the people that you came in contact with, be able to change your mind, to remove you from what you normally do to something else, something that's foreign. And you think about like the raccoon. The raccoon was one of the biggest delicacies here. But then they always talk about now they have what do you call it? Rabies. But see, they don't talk about the rabid dogs that the conquistadors and different ones brought over here, the attack dogs, like the ones that we love, so like the pit bulls and the what is that other what is those other dogs? The German Shepherd, the King Corso, the what's that other brown and black dog, big dog?
Oh, that one's called the Negro, because you have brothers that bark like dogs.
Yeah.
And that's what do you see from that point of view? What do you see from that point of view? Like we just explained, they can change. They can take you from the land. So they have us thinking we're dogs.
Yeah, like the Rottweiler. Them dogs like that. It's like, and we love these dogs.
Yeah,
It's like your dog was the wolf, the fox, and now you got this hybrid that brought disease over here and attacking your people. But see, it doesn't resonate in the minds of the indigenous people.
why
Now they got these dogs, treat them like people and family, licking them in the mouth and all this other stuff. It's like, are you stupid? But again, this is what this when the traumatic mind like to forget about the truth. So now you got to be very careful when you maybe want some raccoon to eat, because why? He may have a disease that was brought here centuries ago. Unless you get it out in a rural, dense rural area, chances are he's not infected. But again, these urban ones, hey, we don't know what they came in contact with.
what are some of the
Raccoons are
birds?
everywhere.
What are some of the birds they have over there? What are some of the other animals that they bought over? That's
Well, just like the pigeon, they brought over some of the um, different types of sparrows. What else? Got so many different names. Um, some of these birds are predators that they brought over, and it's like they now is like you would think that, oh, these birds originate there. There's so many of them. You got birds that, like, you can sit down at a picnic table near the beach and eating shrimp, and next thing you know, you got these birds on the table like, hey, cuz, you gonna give me some of that shrimp? And you're like, what? And you don't fly away like the birds here in the city. Soon as you get close to them, they're gone like the flash. But those birds, they're just, like, hey, what you got to eat? Can I get some? It's like, wow, this is just a whole different vibe with the animals. But again, a lot of these animals are not indigenous to those lands.
yeah. That's another thing too. Having that disconnect from the animals and all living life form. Us not having that connection to that, not only to that, to the land and everything the land produces.
Mm.
We're being systematically cut off from that. The people are,
Yes.
and that's why I say over there, what happened to those people? Because, like you said, that used to be a landmass over there.
Mm-hmm.
Since it was a landmass, why did it go underwater?
Mm.
Because if you look off the coast of Japan, because they even say off the coast of Japan, you look off the coast of Japan, shit, it's a whole nother civilization up under there and
Mm-hmm.
all through it. So what's going on the planet, and how do we recognize as a people so it won't happen again? Or, well, at least while we're here.
I just want to reiterate the traumatized mind forgot about who you really are on this planet and what you're capable of doing and maintaining, and that's just it. You become traumatized, you become hypnotized or tricked out of what's yours and what was vibrant and important and nutritious and everything else. I think, and it's just my opinion, I think once we started doing certain things, the land started to separate itself from us.
Ooh, damn.
Start being in contact with certain people, and it's like the land is like, look, are you stupid? This is what I'm gonna do. See ya.
Damn.
But again, that's just my personal opinion. I think the land decided, like, you know what, y'all ain't who you're supposed to be, and so I got to go.
You know what? I know what you say, saying that's your opinion.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, man. What you say counts just as much as Trump. You know what I'm saying? So you will say something, and Trump, because this motherfucker on TV, people will go by what he says.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he ain't saying nothing. But you made sense. And the earth being a living being, more so alive than we are, because it's taking care of many of us.
Hmm.
And I can see that.
Yeah.
That's doable.
Yeah.
Because you act so foul and stupid. And that's what I mean about the indigenous people of America. They have just sunken. I mean, they've sunken past low.
Hmm.
Serious. I mean, this is the reality.
Hmm. And this is what urbanization does too. You think about what was prior to contact, and then all this urbanization destroys the land. I
Right.
mean, there's a place here in Cleveland. It's called East Cleveland, and it was established by the Rockefellers. Now, this is when the Rockefeller found oil in Ohio. And that's when you had gas stations like, you ever hear of Standard Oil?
Yes.
This is before it became BP and all that. But anyway, they built up this urbanized community. And these houses are not, it might as well be mansions. I won't even call them mini mansions. They might as well be mansions. Huge, enormous houses. And these were a lot of his peasants and whatnot that was working for him, was living large in this area. But then by the 1970s, we took it over. Okay, now it's a desolate, urbanized area with these big, massive houses. Some people keep them up, a lot of people don't, and they've been trying to annex it to Cleveland for years, but they want to try to maintain the independence, because in that area you had a lot of industries like auto industry, manufacturing, stuff like that. Besides the oil. And even as a child, riding in the car with my mom and her friend, and they had all these fast food joints and everything, and we talking about in the 70s. And you had to like creep through that area. You couldn't drive like an idiot because the law enforcement would be right on top of you. Like, they'd be on you so fast like a cheap suit. And so by the time we went to the 1980s, the economic collapse. And now, like I said, it's nothing but a desolate, urbanized area with these big, huge houses.
And they want to, be part of Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to Cleveland, but what I
They
hear
won't.
of Cleveland is kind of what
Mm-hmm.
you just explained of East Cleveland.
Yeah, yeah. And even some of the other neighborhoods, they was calling it the Gold Coast and all kind of different names, and different Europeans. The Jews came over, and they started building up all these different urbanized communities and stuff. And then when they move out to the more suburban or rural areas, then so-called us, we move in, and then it becomes a desolate, urbanized place. And just like my neighbors, I got this one neighbor, I nicknamed him Fred Sanford. I don't say that to his face. He's originally from Georgia. But because of the activities that goes on at his house, I call him Fred Sanford. Anyway, I can remember one day he told me, say, I know when you see something, you say something. I said, yeah, this is our home. This is our land. And like, look, it's not where you live, it's how you live. You need to take care of what you living at, instead of trashing it up and all kind of crime and all kind of stupid stuff and a nuisance to the people, your neighbors and stuff like that. You need to be an asset. You need to be helpful to the people in your community, or your village, or how you want to phrase it. And he knows when I see stuff going on, it's like, oh, there's that crazy Marine. No, it's not that crazy Marine. It's that crazy indigenous man saying, hey, we're going to stop this. This is where we live, and we need to take care of it. I don't need to be nervous about where I live at or under stress because of some idiot.
You know what? You know what I thought about, you just said that man removed himself from the people.
Hmm.
Could it be that we buy all this junk? I mean, because the average African American, Black, Negro, colored person has more stuff in their house made in China than they have things made in their own land. Could that be a reason why the planet would want to rid itself from us? Could that be one of the reasons? Because we don't even make nothing.
Think about a relationship. It's like this. You got a relationship with this landmass, and landmass said, "Look, you don't want me no more. You're not treating me right. I'm gonna separate myself from you."
Right.
Okay, and that's basically like a huge divorce. You know, the part of the relationship, one person in the relationship not being treated right by the other.
Wow.
So it's like you're gonna allow these these so-called people to come here and change what was beautiful. You know, we had a beautiful relationship. We had it going on. We were lit. And, you know, you got to allow these people to change your mind, to change your culture, to change your land. I'm out of here.
Wow, man.
You know, it's you know, and yeah, you know, if you think about it from that perspective, it makes sense. But again, you got a lot of our folks, things that make sense, they don't want to hear it.
Why do you think that is?
Like I said, a traumatized mind is a mind that wants to remove itself from the truth. They don't want to deal with the truth. They don't want to face the truth. Not, you know, it's like this, you know, that term, the truth to set you free. Yeah, it'll set you free, but it may piss you off first because you have to deal with it. You know, but again, when you avoid it and try to pretend like it's something else or try to make get along to get along to get along the terminology, you know, it's like you got to be stupid. You know, it's just like, you know, that's not how you're supposed to behave. And so we're not behaving right. We're not treating things right. We're not treating our land right. We allow all this stuff, you know, to be tricked, to be manipulated, um, having fantasies and romanizations about stuff. And it's like, that's not the way to go. I deal with reality.
Yeah, we had a Toshunga Uwishin
Hmm.
just posted something, and this goes back to the land and how we're supposed to be stewards of land,
Yeah.
making things cool.
Hmm.
Just posted this. An oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico has been leaking since 2004.
Wow.
You remember that? Remember that
Yeah.
oil rig that exploded down there?
Hmm.
So imagine what it's done since then, what it's doing now, how it's affecting the people down there, how it's
Hmm.
affecting the wildlife there. And
Okay.
and as people who are of this land, we talking and arguing over some dumb shit all the time.
All the time. If
What
people would
what
think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
what do you think? Okay, so when you say the land separates itself from the people,
Hmm.
are you looking at it as the land as a thinking, feeling, sentient being is just saying, I'm out?
Hmm. Think about this. That's a good statement that he posted up. Think about oil as the blood of the land. And you think about the minerals of the earth, you know, the stuff that they get out to make steel and other stuff. Even in the area where my mom is from or other folks are from, that kaolin, which is a type of clay, a white clay that they dig out the ground, They've been digging it out the ground for hundreds of years, shipping it out all over the world. It's a base for porcelain, base for paper products and other things. It's called kaolin. They call Sandersville, Georgia, the kaolin capital of the world. So you're removing that stuff from the land, and it's nutrient for the land or the earth, but it's toxic when you expose it to biological life, just like oil. You know, I mean, yeah, you get gasoline from it, you get other products from it, but it's still toxic to people, you know? And it's like, man, this is crazy. But allowing these folks, this is all they do is go around the world looking for resources. And whatever resource they can make commerce from and mass produce it, this is what they do. Doesn't matter how dangerous it is, doesn't matter how dangerous it is to the earth, how it destroys the wildlife or the biological life of the earth. You know, and the earth is like, look, you people need to get it together. Because if not, I'm out of here.
I just our inability. I mean, we don't even speak up, man. So this is a call to all the listeners. You got to start being a part of this, y'all. Everybody. Because you see, nobody been talking about Jesus. You ain't heard that name in months. We gotta stop playing. Stevie Wonder said it. You believe in things you don't understand, your ass suffer.
And we've been suffering too long behind that, because again, you know, you think about these things, and I talk to people all the time. It's like, look, how did you first hear about this Jesus character? Who brought this to you? And I explained to another person, did you know that this John Eliot interpreted the Algonquin language that was spoken all over the eastern seaboard? Huh? Yes, he interpreted the language and then put it in the Bible, then give it to you. And just like that one native Hawaiian had told me, said his daddy had told him, said they give you the religion, they give you the alcohol, the next thing you know, they got a job program for you. Then I talk to people about drugs. I say, did you know drugs is a government program? Huh? I'm like, this stuff don't pop out of nowhere. It's something that's been constructed. It's planned for you, for your demise. And you fall for it. And it's like, once that stuff was embedded into the minds of the people, it's like when you talk about the things that are real and what's happening, they're like, huh? And they think that character they keep talking about from this allegory or this book of alchemy and allegories is going to save them, when they really need to be working on saving themselves. But you try to tell them that, boy, they flip out on you. They flip out on you. That's a traumatized mind. Just like this one friend of mine is a former ordained minister, and she said, we got to come out of this. It's a mental health thing. I'm like, yep, I know. We need to get away from this stuff. Yeah, because it's not only a mental health thing, it's also designed to control you. And if you notice, these people go around the world getting indigenous people's language, they archive it. And many people don't know. Hawaiians weren't allowed to speak their language for 150 years. How do you do that? If you're indigenous to this land and this is your language, how are you not allowed to speak your language? Why? Oh, well, you probably think we're going to have an indigenous uprising. This is what they do. So you weren't allowed to speak your language for over 150 years? Really? And some of the pronunciations are still wrong. Like when they talk about the island where Pearl Harbor is on, it's Oahu. No, it's not Oahu. It's Oahu. That's what the actual people pronounce it. Oahu.
You
Not
see how
Oahu.
they changed that shit? You see how that's changed right off the bat?
Yeah,
And that's what you mean by different dialects, how people say things.
yeah.
I wonder how much of that we don't understand about what's going on here in America.
Man, we are so messed up. I can remember as a child growing up, and the pronunciations my mother would make, like we stayed in a housing project, and she would be at work, and this was the time where you didn't have to be a certain age to be at home. And she would tell me, the maintenance man is coming. And she pronounced all the vowels and everything. And I'm like, and then by the time we reached the 70s and 80s, remember that Ebonics nonsense came out?
Right.
It's like, wait a minute. You know, I come to realize that my mom and different other people, you realize that English wasn't our first language because of how they pronounce stuff. My mom's name was Evelyn, but they just call her Elle, you know? And another aunt, they because she was she was one of the youngest and the bougiest, they call her Lady. Her name was Anna Pearl, but they call her Lady. You know, and it was just like there's a difference there.
Right.
And a lot of us don't realize the difference, but then they want to go back to that Alex Haley nonsense and like, no, I don't know nothing about that. No. We had our own way of pronouncing things, describing stuff, and then when you mix it in with this Germanic language, it comes out different.
And changes everything.
Changes everything.
Well, cool, brother. Well, listen, we're going to go ahead and close it down now. You have a lot of intelligent people in the chat. Give them
Yes.
something. Give them something they can take with them tonight, man, and think about tonight.
Well, what I want them to do is, like for them to do, is to think about some of the things we discussed and delve into things that relates to us as people in the Americas and how it affects us as people, and we can see it. I mean, eyes open, you can see everything that's going on right now. What's going on with us? But I appreciate them being here, and also, again, it's always an honor and a pleasure to talk with you and be a part of this discussion.
Brother, I really appreciate you sharing with what you have because we all know something.
Yeah.
I don't know everything, but you know things that I don't know, and I just appreciate you sharing them with the audience.
And I want to leave them with this. Think about the Germanic term team. I look at it from this perspective. Together, everyone achieves miracles. You know, like you just said it. I know something, you know something, somebody else knows something. We bring it together, we can achieve miracles.
So listen, y'all, how this brother's on sharing, you can have that same opportunity. Get with me. You got information that we need that can help us build out of this in this white supremacist bullshit ass system. Please contact me and let's go. Let's share. Thank you for joining us tonight. Be safe out there, be wise, and love each other. Peace.
Peace. Right.